I welcome you all to the last and final tutorial as well as final session of the Gyan workshop, Women Writers and Thinkers of the Modern Critical Tradition. We have Professor Mina Mitrano with us after two wonderful lectures on Angela Putino and Maria Zambrano. She is going to take up the tutorial right now. So over to you, ma'am. The handouts have been shared, so you can start whenever you are ready. You are
Thank
visible.
you. Thank you. Based on yesterday's experience, I think we may want to have a different tutorial today. There is a more collective, choral tutorial. You remember yesterday I asked you to discuss in groups and then we converged. But I noticed that when we converged, there was a very lively debate, but not all the groups could share. So to avoid that kind of exclusion, I suggest we have a free discussion. Whoever wants to join, just raise your hand and the assistant will either unmute you or will give you the faculty of unmuting yourself. Now, since the materials may have been new, I think I would like to have a tutorial in which we cover your questions, your doubts, or your thoughts and reflections about both lectures. Um, so if there are any notes, any comments, any questions, you can begin articulating them. Otherwise, what I was thinking to warm up the room, I know that it is important to cover the Zambrano and Putino lectures. However, it would perhaps be a rewarding idea to begin with a prompt that kind of sums up the workshop, sums up what we have been doing in the workshop. I'm thinking about the third prompt. I'm going to share the screen in a second, but I'm thinking about the third prompt in your handout, which is the prompt that also contains an image. So allow me to share the screen and see what I think we might do. Obviously, if you have other suggestions, I'm open. Whatever works for you and is rewarding for you. So sharing the screen, and you probably see the Word doc. And this is the tutorial linked to lectures 7 and lecture 8. First, there is a prompt linked to lecture 7 where I propose that we retrace our steps and look at Putino's analysis of biopolitics and what I call the glimmer of a beyond, of a different story of the subject. Then there is another prompt relating to lecture 8, and it's again an invitation to discuss, analyze, discuss, and debate together the key passage from philosophy and poetry that I shared with you during the lecture. The picture of a human condition of enchained in time and the dispersal of the father principle, of a first principle. In fact, in the image of voice, of a distant echoes, so phone over logos. But this is the prompt that I had in mind to warm up the room. The prompt, contains this image. Let me read for you, and then you will understand why I have included that image. And again, I apologize for the self-referential moment. It is an image that I have used before. I have, in fact, used it as the cover of my book on critique. Now, here below, you see an image by South Korean artist Iron Can. This is an artist I discovered while in Sydney a few years ago, in fact, in 2016. And at first, I was simply struck by by her work, her installations, but then I became uh, more reflective about them, and I realized that her work really triggers key questions about knowledge in our time. So the image is entitled Textual Landscapes, and it is representative of Kang's work. Typically, in fact, Kang works on projects that consist of installations made of sculptures in the form of books, created with resin and lead devices. So they are lit shells looking like books, made of sculptures in the form of books, created with resin and lead devices that emit colorful lights programmed to change in luminosity, chromatic nuances, and intensity. Kang's books are not books in the traditional sense, of course. They are made of resin, they are made of lead, they are objects. We cannot open them, for instance. They are virtual books, that is to say, hollow book forms cast from transparent synthetic resin. Anna Davis, the curator of the 2016 Sydney exhibit on Kang, captures an essential aspect of the artist's work when she proposes that in exploring the book as a symbol of human knowledge, Kang raises questions about our capacity to protect and preserve what we know. The idea of preserving, guarding, taking care, and looking for a critique that takes care of the fragile of cultural artifacts is something that at the heart, that's something that is it's a concern in contemporary critique, which calls itself post-critique precisely to diversify itself from the dismantling deconstructive axis. So Davis says that in exploring the book as a symbol of human knowledge, Kang raises questions about our capacity to protect and preserve what we know. How will we store information in the future? To preserve and protect what, so this is one of the questions. Another question might arise, what bits of it will we value? And will we still absorb in the same ways? So I used, as I told you, I used Kang's image on the cover of my book on literary critique because the artist's work resonates in particularly striking ways in literary studies today with the idea of texts as wounded and vulnerable artifacts. In a way, when you emphasize the idea of multiple meanings, that the text can have a multiplicity of meanings, you were also pointing out, although in an indirect way, their wounded and vulnerable status, because the minute you have multiple meanings, then how do you decide what the meaning, the stable meaning might be? The text becomes more vulnerable. So discuss the image. And so my invitation to you to warm up is discuss the image and brainstorm ways in which Kang's work might be attuned to the profile of the critic as it has emerged in our lecture series, or what it might suggest about the task of the critic for the present and the future. And this is the image textual reproduction of textual landscapes. Unfortunately, in the handout, you have it in black and white. So that's why I'm also sharing the screen so that you have the real color installation there it is. These are all lead books. They are shells of resin lit from within. We can see them. You can see their books displayed on bookshelves. This is an assortment, a variety of topics from Nietzsche to the New Yorker, from Bob Dylan to Brooklyn to novels. There is somewhere the Freud, yes, Freud, and then Nietzsche, Ayn Rand, Paul McCartney. So popular culture, high culture. It's a an ensemble, an almost anarchic ensemble of titles. But the point is that these books are lit shells. We can look at them, we can't open them. It's almost as if we were led to imagine what they contain. So, what do you think about starting brainstorming your immediate reactions to this? Would you like still to have some time in groups, or can we, or do you think we can have a more collective discussion with each of you inserting his or her opinion? Do you need the group experience to warm up a little bit? If so, you can divide in groups, but take only 10 minutes to brainstorm this prompt. 10 minutes only, and then we'll reconvene if you need that group experience to get you going. Yeah.
Then we can. We also have a comment already in the chat box.
Yes.
If you want, we can start with that, or we can take 10 minutes and reconvene after the discussion.
We have a
Whatever.
comment. Yeah, Atolanto, I have a very small comment. Individual ideas. Yeah, I mean, if by individual ideas you mean just anyone, every one of you jumping in the conversation individually, yes, but also yes, your individual fresh ideas about the prompt, absolutely, about the relevance of this artist's work to our question about reading and about the critic. Priyanshu's comment. That was Priyanshu's comment.
Ma'am, we also have a comment from Srijita. Can you check it in the chat box?
Let me see. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Shrita, yes. Sorry, I am not seeing that. So while you were discussing Putino, you mentioned an essay concerning the interpretation of the Iliad and how people are treated as object things. Would you be kind enough to mention? Oh, of course, I would be delighted. I'm going to put the name in the chat box. But thank you so much, Shirita. Your lectures were extremely light. Thank you. Thank you to you. Okay, so I was talking about the thinker writer is Simone Weil. First of all, let's begin with the name Simone Weil, French-based Jewish thinker who was very keen on linking thought and praxis. So, though she was a philosopher, she worked in factories. She enlisted as a fighter to in the fight against the dictatorship of Franco in Spain, although she was French. And she, perhaps the most well-known fact about her is that she starved herself because she refused toward the end of her life. She accepted to nourish herself only according to the same quantities that prisoners in the Nazi camps were given. So she wanted to be nourished only to be given as food, only what the prisoners were given. And of course, she died. But apart from this anecdote, Simone Weil is the thinker of reference for Angela Putino. And Weil wrote this fantastic essay, Iliad, or the Poem of Force. It has been translated in English by Mary McCarthy. They wrote it toward the end, well, in the midst actually of World War II, and McCarthy translated it early 50s, if I'm not mistaken. It's a good translation. I sometimes use it in when I teach critical thinking to BA students. But yeah, it's an astonishing essay, and I'd be if you read it, Sirita, in the future, don't hesitate to write to me to share your impressions. I would be delighted. Thank you. So, in fact, speaking of that, as we were saying with Professor Singh earlier on, yes, I know this is the last tutorial, the last discussion, but the workshop, the overall workshop, was also the beginning of something. As Professor Singh rightly remarks in conversation with me, we are a community here. We have formed a community. The conversation, if it has been meaningful, can certainly be carried on. And if you embark on research that involves issues that were, the object of reflection in this workshop, you are certainly, I would be delighted to, listen to your ideas, read what you write, etc., etc. Let's hope, in other words, that this end is the beginning of something else in a different form. So now back to the operative question. Would you prefer a 10-minute warm-up as a group, or would you like to go by individual contributions? I know the materials were intense. Yeah. Just some time to think. Exactly, because forming groups is an expedient to just reflect. So let's take 10 quality time, 10, let's say 10 to 13 minutes of reflection, whether in groups or individually, and reconvene so that we can have our usual engaging conversation. I'll see you in 13 minutes max.
Sure, ma'am. We will reconvene in 10 to 12 minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
Welcome back, ma'am. Welcome back. So,
Okay, yes, ready. So I'm ready whenever the participants are ready, and we can certainly start warming up the room by maybe reporting, those of you who have worked in groups, reporting a few points of their discussion, their impressions, and we can take it from there. Okay. Priya.
Priyadarshini, you can speak.
Priyadarshini, yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. I think she means to say that governing happens through identity because without identity, governing and all the ways power is wielded may not happen. And the acts of suppression, oppression, or even homogenization will not happen in the absence of identity. There will be an absolute chaos. But without identity in the current world, our existence become invisible or it can even become non-existent. And I think erasure of identity is something a totalitarian government will do. And in the absence of identity, though, by the idea, the thought itself is very horrifying because it can render people non-existent. And from what she's saying, I understand, and I want to relook at the fear of, the lack of identity, the absence of identity, because the fear is deliberately perpetuated. But in reality, from if we look at identity from her point of view, we understand the absence of identity is actually better. But we have the fear that in the absence of identity, we might lose what we are. We might become non existent. Our existence becomes nothing. That's what we think. But if we look at it again from her perspective, it is actually better because everyone will become equal in that way. There will not be any, hierarchy in that matter. It is what I wanted to share.
Yeah, thank you so much. Very incisive. You're revolving around the knot in Putino, the knot. I don't want to say paradox, but the knot, the problem that she does not solve, but she foregrounds for us as if turning the light on it. So the search for a thought that fans the flame of brotherhood in the sense of equality. A space, and actually she talks about an empty space where the father is not a father. There is no longer a governing principle. At the same time, loss of identity means chaos. Yes. In fact, we can say, reconverting what Putino says through your comments, we can say that Putino limits herself, but this is already a great task, at taking a picture of the necessity of being conscious about identity. That identity is maybe inauthentic, maybe a construct, maybe a constraint, but it is a way to limit chaos. I it's almost it almost has a catechotic function whereby the catechon here I'm referring to St. Paul. The catechon is a principle that limits chaos. Putino is aware of the pit of formlessness. She talks about that. And she's aware, however, that identity, social identity, our habit of classifying, is a necessary evil in a way. It's necessary insofar as it limits chaos. It limits it limits anarchy. It limits chaos. At the same time, at the same time, simultaneously to this insight, simultaneously, that we put on an identity out of fear, out of the fear of being nothing, as you said. At the same time, she wants to keep well inside the work of governmentality, the work of biopolitics, and the fact that we are always already addressed as bare bodies to be put into a shape, to be put to be bare bodies subjected to certain commands, certain rules. Putino is a radical thinker in doing this. The reason why I said you revolved around the knot is that she could lead us before that abyss, for chaos, only by being very critical of feminism. Putino accused, especially Italian feminism, which is a particular theoretical drift whereby the subject we was not only very cohesive but even stronger than in the Anglophone world, and where the Oedipal order of the father, well, as an alternative to the Oedipal order of the father, some theorists like Luisa Muraro, I'm going to write the name here, Muraro, proposed the alternative order of the mother. Putino could not care less about this because she thought, okay, what is the use of replacing the paternal symbolic order with the maternal symbolic order? So she was interested in feminism as a tool for the analysis of power, but also to move beyond. And your comment also informs me that what I said and what I felt before the lecture, during the lecture, and even now, is that I barely got to the point where I can glimpse a way of moving beyond power, but that remains unformulated. What I like in your what I value in your comment is that you're seeing that identity and governmentality and biopolitics are two faces of the same coin, and that's absolutely true. Identity and governmentality, two faces, they fuel each other. Let's see if we have, Luisa Muraro, the symbolic order of the mother. Translated in English, I think. So thank you for your comment, Priyadarshini. I don't know if what I said is helpful or resonates with you.
Yes, ma'am, it does. And I also have another question related to this. In the present world, we see so many war situation, and we see so many refugees moving to different countries. They do not have proper permit and all. And if we look from that point of view, doesn't it seem like identity is important, because lack of identity pushes them to the margin again and again? And what we've been discussing, it looks like an utopian world which seems very distant, but the current world is not utopian at all. We need to face the realities of today. So I would like to know your perspective on this, ma'am.
Yeah, I think that working on migrants and the condition of being a migrant, or being a migrant is not just being a migrant. Someone who is on the move, leaves his or her country because out of poverty. That's not the only reason. There are many reasons, complex reasons. I think migration has been studied too abstractly for my taste. I think the notion of the migrant, which is different from the refugee, but the idea of that there is this new subjectivity in our world, the migrant is really a new subjectivity. It's a problematic subjectivity. It's certainly the subjectivity about which Europe is divided, and it causes the harshest conflicts in Europe, and it unveils the harshest contradictions and the harshest authoritarian drifts. I agree with you that our world is not utopian, but we do need a theory. We do need theoretical thought to imagine it. And identities like that of the migrant, and I say identity because we all have our image of what a migrant is. It's food for thought. We should start perhaps from there, from that condition. That's what I have to say. Really, nothing much except that it's a big issue, and I think it would be more helpful to talk about migrants and the singularity of migrants than migration as a phenomenon, because to talk about migration in the abstract is a way of not saying much about these lives that are continually, even in our world, theoretically advanced world, are continually not only pushed to the margins, but as we were also saying yesterday, they have no value. They end up having no value at all. So the structures of power are recreated, and in our world, although it's no longer a world divided into classes and races, but it's a world of where it is assumed that mobility is a right, but in fact, the mobility of migrant is an emergency, and it is the gateway to a different society, to imagining a different society.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Yes, I really value your insights, and I'm sorry if I diverged from the main topic. Yeah, thank you so much for your answer, ma'am.
No, absolutely. You're right on topic. Now, I think I should cede the floor first to Priyanshu, then Paridi. Priyanshu raised his hand, and then Paridi.
Yes, ma'am. Greetings of the day. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, you are. You are.
Okay, ma'am. So, like, I have taken the second question. That is like the passage from the Maria's philosophy and poetry. So, like, the passage goes like that: all of us one day hope to be called by our name, that name that no one else knows, neither ourselves nor the eternal mother. So what I found after reading this passage that this explores the existentialism, and there is a psychological dimension of human identity, and where the human identity is struggling because of authority, and because of the tension between protection and autonomy. So, like, after reading this paragraph, what I found, like, the Maria is trying to evoke that there is a deeply symbolic sense that where father presents both guiding and a prohibited force, like what it is responsible for, like shaping one's individual journey. It's talking about like it's shaping one's individual journey, or like it's affecting one's individual journey towards self-awareness. So like what I found, like there is also like a desire to be called by our own name. So this suggests that there is a longing for self recognition, and there is a longing for self awareness, and there is longing for authenticity. So there is a line that they say, it comes out like this name is mysterious, unknown even to the self. So here what I found, like the identity is something that we seek rather than we fully possess. Am I audible, ma'am?
Oh, could you say the last sentence again?
Yeah, ma'am.
Priyanshu.
Like Yeah, ma'am. What I was saying, there is a line that suggests that this name is mysterious,
Yeah, yeah,
and that is even unknown even to the self.
yeah,
So that this
yeah,
is trying to imply that like identity is something which we seek rather than we
yeah.
fully possesses. So
Got it, got it.
yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
you
So
said
moving
receive.
on,
Yeah,
yes, yes, ma'am. So
yeah,
there is also the role of father that has been discussed. That father is father in this
yeah,
passage
yeah,
represents
yeah,
the
yeah,
authoritative figure
yeah,
that implies
yeah,
provision, and
yeah,
like the weight of traditional values. And
yeah,
so his presence is like both protective and restrictive. Like it is if one want to grow, that allowing limited space, I can say that it is responsible for like individuals path while also instilling limits. So
yeah,
the father's figure is somewhere that is very restrictive and it is very protective. And there is
yeah,
also a symbol of garden. I will read it out. There is a line, uh, on our innocent forehead in the uncanny garden of our childhood. So like there is a symbol of garden that represents innocence and constraint. So here what like childhood is depicted as very as an uncanny garden, like evoking both safety, and there is a sense
yeah,
of entrapment as well, we can say that.
yeah,
And there is a
yeah,
line that suggests that the desire to run away from home. So this suggests
yeah,
that again, this is suggesting that there is a struggle for independence.
mm,
There is a fight for self awareness. There is a fight for self definition.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
so here comes again, here comes a line about father's gaze. So that line goes in this way, like burning them with fire of fear and desire. So this line suggests that the authority is both oppressive, and it is what it is alluring as well. So here like fear emerges like from the weight of expectations. We all know that when someone is expecting something from us, the fear is somewhere present in our that expectation.
yeah,
So when Maria describes that how fathers influence as something that is beyond earthly realm, and there is also like a presentation of infinite hello. So like something which is very metaphysical, or
mm-hmm,
something
mm-hmm,
talking about identity or existential quest. So
yeah,
this idea of like infinite hello to me suggests that like human beings exist with larger cosmic and spiritual framework.
yeah, yeah,
And and when I tried to find the connection of Maria with like Angela, so her writings, like Angelia's work, are also like particularly their reflection on subjectivity, reflections on gender as well. So her work also suggests or engages with the idea of self identity as something that is very elusive, and
mm-hmm,
identity is how somewhere shaped by external forces, whether we talk about social forces or somewhere. So
yeah,
she, no doubt, like Angela is like a feminist philosopher, and I found like few things which are common with between Maria and Angela, like the way the identity is shaped by social and philosophical forces, and they both are like trying to define how the struggle against inherited norms, like how our self
yeah,
identity is struggling or fighting against inherited norms. And also like there is like a interplay between fear, desire, and self identity, self discovery, self awareness.
yeah,
So this is these are my findings, and if someone will ask like what I took out of this reading, of this comparison, so like I will say that like ma'am, like this passage speaks to the universal human condition. So that the human condition, the identity need to be recognized, the struggles with the authority, and the desires to transcend imposed limitations. So yes, ma'am,
yeah.
they both have like very similarity when it comes about writing, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, allow me to comment on your incisiveness, but also on the skills that you have been sharing with us, Priyanshu. The skill of connecting, taking the tools of every lecture and connecting them. Thank you so much for that service to the community here of participants. Now, let me highlight.
Yes, ma'am. Like,
Some
yes, ma'am.
some of
Okay, ma'am. Like as you mentioned about like relating, so I was like after this, I was trying to relate these concept with like as Sedgwick and Sentog as well, like how there is a formation of subjectivity between the poetic identity of Maria.
yeah yeah
There is a talk of political belonging of Arendit, and there is a like quest for identity of queerness in Sedgwick. Or when we
yeah
talk about like when we talk about feminism, there comes the idea of lingerie.
yeah.
So all
Absolutely.
everyone is like struggling for self identity.
Okay, yeah, unstoppable. I mean, you are unstoppable. That's great. Let me simply single out a few points that seem to be key because they recap our work. Protection, the tension that you hear in both Zambrano and Putino, especially in Zambrano, between protection versus autonomy. It's important that you hear the tension. It's precisely the tension, that audible tension, that is important, not so much the full conceptualization of something, but the tension. They both Putino and Zambrano strive to use language to engage all the senses
Yes, ma'am.
of the reader. Now, hearing the tension between protection and autonomy, between limits, and another desire, the desire for excess, uh, longing for authenticity, using Lonzi's term, the longing for recognition, and yet the discomfort with the models through which we recognize. And this is an important task for the reader of Zambrano and the reader of Putino. Moreover, the fact that you hear after reading Zambrano and Putino, the fact that you come away from them with the idea that identity, the I, is received, that's an achievement because they're both working toward that idea, though never fully explicitly articulating, but what they're saying is that yes, identity is received. My favorite part, I mean, I loved everything you said, but my favorite part is when you hung on the image of the garden. Yes, it's because
Yes, ma'am.
Zambrano is using poetic language, poetically, metaphorically. Yes, that garden is a shelter, but it's also a confinement. It's a confinement. Remember Sontag's dive into, a voluntary confinement. Yes, there is a sense whereby Zambrano and Putino as well, in all their radicalness, are not exactly discarding conceptually, discarding limits as conceptual tools, or discarding forms so identity being a form as conceptual tools. Their interest is in our awareness of the kind of work that these forms are made to do, are
Yes.
asked to do, the kind of limiting, constraining work. Being aware of that for Putino means already knowing what biopolitics is. So, but in your contribution, the fact that starting from Putino and Zambrano, you can expand back to the authors in our course and flash back to Cedric, to the others. All of them embody a kind of critique, a
Yes,
critique
ma'am.
that you sum up. And I want to, repeat your word. A struggle uh, uh, against or to depart from the shaping social forces. A struggle away from norms, from shaping social forces. The critique, as we have introduced, that we have, that I tried to share with you, the idea of critique is this, and it's in different nuances. Our authors remark on the same thing: this moving away, departing, this struggle, this tension, very dynamic, very live struggle, to depart from norms, as if life were at stake, and it is at stake. It is a stake for Cedric, for Putino. It is a stake because they changed their lives accordingly. They shaped their lives on this struggle. So thank you so much for your rich contribution.